Good morning, everybody, and a very warm welcome to the committee and to officers and to applicants and the public. This is the Planning Application Subcommittee on the 28th of October here in the Livery Hall at Guildhall. I'm going to hand over to the Town Clerk for the usual introduction. It just works.
Thank you. Good morning, members, and welcome to this meeting. As you are aware, the public element of today's meeting is being live streamed, and those participating in the meeting have given consent to their inclusion. The recording will be available on the City Corporation's YouTube channel following the meeting, and it shall be retained for up to 1 civic year. Whilst we endeavour to live stream all our public meetings, technical difficulties may sometimes prevent live broadcast. In these circumstances, we aim to upload a recording after the end of the meeting. All personal data will be processed in accordance with the Data Protection Act 2018, and for any further information on that, please feel free to contact us. Please be aware that microphones will be on at a low level at all times, and background sounds could be picked up.
Thank you, Town Clerk. Just as a couple of pieces of housekeeping, you hopefully saw the email to say that on further reflection after the discussion at the last Planning and Transportation meeting, we are not holding the 11th of November subcommittee meeting. That means the next subcommittee, actually contrary to the email that you had, the next subcommittee is on the 14th of January, so you get December off, although there is a Planning and Transportation meeting on the 2nd of December. Turning then to apologies. We've got apologies from Deputy Marianne Fredericks, Alderman Simon Pryke, Deputy Nigat Qureshi and Madhush Gupta. Are there any others that we're aware of? Okay, we will note those. Item 2, are there any declarations under the Code of Conduct? Josephine.
Tana Adkin KC is joining online.
Thank you. We will note that she's joining online. Thanks very much. Are there any declarations under the Code of Conduct for today's meeting? I don't see any. Then turning to item 3, the minutes of the meeting from the 30th of September. These are for your approval, subject to one amendment that Deputy Nigat Qureshi was observing the meeting online. With that amendment, are there any questions or corrections? Therefore, are we happy to approve? Thank you very much. Okay, we're now on to the only application that's being considered today at this subcommittee meeting. It's item 4. You'll find that in page 5 onwards of your pack. This is Baltic Street West and the application number 2500905. I'm going to invite John Grierson to present the application to the subcommittee. It's a slightly unusual one for this committee, which he will explain why. There are no objectors here to speak. The applicant did request to speak, but unfortunately missed the deadline, and we do need to be even-handed with all these things, and so there will not be an applicant speaking. However, you hopefully received the addendum with his various comments regarding the application that was circulated yesterday. John, perhaps you can now present.
Thank you, Chair. This presentation covers the permission in principle application for the erection of a self-built single-storey dwelling with detached single-storey garage and gardens at Baltic Street West. Permission in principle consent is an alternative way of obtaining planning permission for housing-led development, separating matters of principle from the technical detail of a proposed development. The permission in principle consent has 2 stages, the first of which establishes whether a site is suitable for the proposed development in principle. The second is a technical details consent stage, when the detailed development proposals are assessed. This application relates to the first stage of the permission in principle process, the scope of which is limited to location, land use, and amount of development.
John, could you just move the mic a bit closer, please, so we can hear you? Thank you.
Sorry. The application submission consists solely of this site location plan. This is all that's required to validate a permission in principle application. The site comprises a triangular strip of land bounded by Baltic Street West to the north, Hatfield House and the Golden Lane Estate to the south, and the City of London Primary Academy, Islington and Golden Lane Underground Car Park access road to the east. Immediately to the north of the site is the boundary with the London Borough of Islington. There are 2 mature trees on the site and 4 Sheffield cycle stands. The application seeks permission in principle for a single-storey detached dwelling, garage and gardens on the site. The site was constructed as part of the Golden Lane Estate and is an area of publicly accessible land owned and maintained by the corporation. It is designated as a City of London public footway and a permissive path, and officers consider it open space as is defined by the 2015 local plan. It's considered that the proposed change of this land from an area of publicly accessible open space to a private dwelling would be unacceptable in principle in land use terms. This is the site location plan produced by the city's officers, which shows the site is immediately adjacent to, but not within, the Barbican and Golden Lane Estate Conservation Area and the Grade 2 listed Hatfield House. The Grade 2 star listed Crescent House is to the west of the site, and the Hat and Feathers and St Luke's conservation areas in Islington are to the north of the site, but not pictured here. The Grade 2 listed Golden Lane Estate Historic Park and Garden occupies the same footprint as the conservation area on the plan. A full assessment of the impact of this proposal on these heritage assets has been undertaken in the officer report, where it's been concluded that it would likely cause a low level of less than substantial harm to the significance of Hatfield House and slight levels of less than substantial harm to the Golden Lane Estate Registered Park and Garden and Barbican and Golden Lane Estate Conservation Area. This harm has also been considered as part of paragraph 215 MPPF balancing exercise in the officer report, where it's been determined that the only tangible public benefit to the proposal is the economic benefit of a single self-built dwelling being added to the city's housing stock, which would not outweigh the heritage harm identified. The harm caused to these heritage assets would be through their impact on their setting. The site is surrounded by a mixture of 4 to 6 storey buildings with well-established, clear, geometrically solid building lines on all 3 sides of the triangle. The provision of a single-storey dwelling and garage in this location would likely be visually incongruous, intruding into geometrically arranged buildings and open space that defines the Golden Lane Estate and the setting of Hatfield House. In addition, it would likely appear cramped on its limited plot and would intrude into the sense of space currently present. It's therefore considered that the proposed development is likely to have an unacceptable impact on the character and appearance of the area by failing to respect the urban grain, layout, scale, and building lines of the existing street scene. This is the view southeast showing the 2 mature London plane trees, which it is stated in the application form would be retained. The applicant has also stated in their representation made on 3rd of August that the use of screwjack foundations would prevent any harm to the trees. However, this is not standard construction for a dwelling house, and regardless, it's considered that the construction of a dwelling in this location would have an unacceptable impact upon the health and longevity of the 2 mature trees which occupy the site. This is the view looking west towards the site with Hatfield House on the left. Although there are no details of the design at this stage of the permission in principle process, it's a matter of fact that the visual intrusion created through the erection of a 1-storey dwelling and detached garage with garden on the site would be considerably more than the existing situation of an area of open space. As per the comments from Historic England, the original designers Chamberlain, Powell and Bond produced a shadow diagram which showed the site to be largely covered in shadow, which is reflective of the existing situation. It's therefore evident the site would be overlooked by the substantially taller building and trees, would be overshadowed by the substantially taller building and trees and overlooked by the immediate proximity of the residential balconies, which would result in poor levels of amenity to the proposed dwelling house on the application site and to the existing dwellings on the lower floors of Hatfield House. Also visible in this image is the mouth of the access road junction with Baltic Street West. The site's location abutting the car park access ramp and junction means it's very likely that the development of a single-storey dwelling, garage and gardens on the site would have an unacceptable impact with regard to road dangers and the pedestrian environment. This is because of the development of this piece of land, which is currently open space and a designated permissive path and footway, would likely have an adverse impact upon sight lines and visibility for vehicles entering the car park access ramp and for pedestrians crossing the vehicle access ramp to access Hatfield House. Furthermore, it's considered that the proposed garage would be contrary to car-free policy. As mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, this application relates to the first stage of the permission in principle process, the scope of which is limited to location, land use, and amount of development. Officers draw attention to the late correspondence from the applicant attached within the addendum. None of the points raised affect the assessment undertaken by officers in the report. The public benefits of the scheme are limited to the economic benefit of a single self-built dwelling being added to the housing stock of the city, which is not considered to outweigh the harm identified. It's therefore concluded by officers that the proposed development would be unacceptable in principle on 2 grounds. Firstly, that the proposed land use of the site as a private residential dwelling with a parking garage would be unacceptable, as it would result in the loss of public open space and would fail to be car-free. This is contrary to policies G4 and T6.1 of the London Plan 2021, policy CS19, DM 16.2 and 16.5 of the Local Plan 2015, and policies S14, OS1 and VT3 of the Emerging City Plan 2040. Secondly, that the proposed location and amount of development would be unacceptable, as it is likely to have an unacceptable impact on the character and appearance of the area by failing to respect the urban grain, layout, scale and building lines of the existing street scene, cause less than substantial harm to the Grade 2 listed Hatfield House and slight levels of less than substantial harm to the Golden Lane Estate Registered Park and Garden and the Barbican and Golden Lane Conservation Area, which cannot be outweighed by the public benefits of the proposal, have an unacceptable impact upon the health and longevity of the 2 mature trees which occupy the site, have an unacceptable impact with regard to road dangers and the pedestrian environment, result in poor residential amenity to the existing dwellings on the lower floors of Hatfield House and to the proposed dwelling. This is contrary to policies D3, G7, HE1 of the London Plan 2021, policies CS10, 12, 19 and 21, and DM 10.1, 12.1, 12.5, 16.1 and 21.1 of the Local Plan 2015, and emerging City Plan 2040 policies S3, 8, 9, 10, 11, DE2 and 3, HS1, OS5 and HE1. For these reasons, officers recommend that permission in principle is refused. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John, for that summary of the officer's recommendation. Given there's no other speakers, we're going to go straight to questions from officers before we go into a debate. Questions, please. Nope. Anybody who'd like to say anything in the debate section? Josephine Hayes.
Thank you, Chair. I've looked at and considered the numbered points made by the applicant, and one of them was that he suggested that the existing space was derelict. I would like to express my view that I think that is wrong. It's an open space used by the public. It has a path, permissive path, and it has 2 beautiful trees. And the idea that such spaces are derelict and useless, I would very strongly disagree with. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. Well, I think if the committee are okay, I can move to a vote. So just to clarify, on page 22 of your report, you'll see the recommendation is that the Planning Development Director be authorised to issue a decision notice refusing permission. There are 2 subsequent paragraphs and 1 minor amendment in the second paragraph where it currently says in your pack slight levels of harm. The amendment is to less than substantial levels of harm. With that in mind, and that amendment made, could I ask members of the committee to, let's do this in the right order, those in favour of approving planning permission, and those in favour of the officer recommendation to refuse planning permission, please raise your hand. We better count, so keep them up. We're not very good at counting in this committee, so Alison can double check for us. 20. And any abstentions? Okay. Mr. Meek, I'm sorry, that's not the result you came for today, but permission is refused. Okay, let's move on. Items 5, 6 are both starred. I don't think we had anyone request to unstar them, is that right? In which case they're for information, and we'll take them for information. Moving on to questions. We do have some questions. Deborah Oliver.
Yes, and apologies for the late notice yesterday of my question. It was for the 2 approved applications from the City of London School for Girls, because the school, although it's in Cripplegate, also impacts on Aldersgate, specifically Mountjoy House, Thomas More House and Seddon. So last year we had some concerns because the city school did works without planning permission and without engagement with local residents. So hopefully, and I think we do understand that some liaison groups have been set up, this has changed. So my question is really to confirm that for the quite substantial works that have been approved, has there been sufficient engagement with residents? So thank you very much.
Development Director.
Yes, I mean, obviously this is a city's own application, so I need to be careful to be staying on the planning side. In terms of the planning permission, there was a condition that they needed to submit details to mitigate any impact on residential amenity. They haven't done so. We are aware, and I've liaised with my environmental health colleagues today, they are aware of 2 complaints about noise. We haven't established what the noise are there for, or whether they're implementing the consent, but they would need to submit under the condition for works of mitigating the impacts of that. I've also brought it to the attention of the applicant, which is the city, to ensure that they can pick up on the element of public engagement, and I'm hoping that they'll reach out to you to explain what they're doing.
Are you content, Deborah? Are you happy? Great. And Hugh Soka, you had a question.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd be interested to know why this application was not dealt with under delegated authority. The time that the meeting has taken indicates, I think, that most people would have been happy for this to be dealt with under delegated authority, but nevertheless, we've had dozens of people who've read the 120-odd page pack. So if this isn't, perhaps it would be worth looking at the reason that this wasn't able to be dealt with under delegated authority so that similar applications could be in future.
Yeah, thank you, Hugh. Planning Director.
The only reason, well, it's 2 reasons. One is that it wasn't compliant with local plan policy under the scheme of delegation, and the second reason, we received more than 10 objections, so both of which are triggers to come to committee under the existing scheme of delegation that was agreed by court.
Thank you, Chairman. And those triggers seem like they make a huge amount of sense where the proposal by officers is to grant permission. Where the proposal by officers is to refuse permission, it seems that it would be very straightforward to allow them to do so. Chairman.
I believe, I mean, that's a fair point, and I believe that the scheme of delegation is currently under review, and those aspects will be picked up by our colleagues in Town Clerks.
Excellent. Thank you, Hugh, and thank you, Gwyn. Okay, there's no other business in the public session. I think we don't, well, let's exclude the public if we're happy to support that. I'm happy to go straight on to non-public questions because we haven't been notified of any, and there's no non-public business. Therefore, thank you all for coming. Have a good December off and see you in January.